Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
We having a great day?
Yes.
Get everything done before the rain starts.
Yes.
So we have a great panel here today. First up, we have Alina Chu, Grand Oaks Escrow. Chris Hahn, Gem Mortgage. Horacio Carpio, PPG Mortgage, our home inspection. And Annie Pham, Chicago Title. At this time, I wanted to have each panelist take about 30 seconds to a minute. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you. Alina?
Okay. Good morning. My name is Alina. I've been doing escrow for over 30 years. So we've seen all the changes in the market that it has to offer. So if there's any questions, you can always feel free to give us a call.
Hi everyone, Chris Hahn with Gem Mortgage. I've been in the mortgage industry, this is my 29th year now, so I've been doing this for a little bit. Live in the San Gabriel Valley, lived here my whole life, grew up in Monterey Park, went to Mark Epple High School, USC for college, and live in Arcadia now for the last 29 years. So same time I've been in this business. We're going to talk about lending today and some of the changes and things that are coming up, so hopefully you'll have questions and we'll answer them. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Horacio Carpio. I live in San Gabriel Valley, La Puente more specifically. I've been there since 1988, went to high school locally, Cal Poly Pomona, graduated as a civil engineer. I did civil engineering for about 15 years, you can say. I know a little bit about construction. And right now I am a property inspector. I've been doing it for about 8 years. I've been doing homes, condos, commercial, industrial, so it's just about anything that you see here in Southern California, I've seen it. I don't think there's anything I haven't seen, but I've been surprised once in a while. The pamphlets that you see on your table does have my business card, and you're always welcome to call me. You do not have to make an appointment to speak with me. I always welcome any question that you might have.
Good morning, this is Annie Pham. I've been in the title business for about 13 and a half years. I believe for me, it is a blessing to do what you love for a living. If you have any title questions, you can always reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help you out. Thank you.
Okay, great. Let's go ahead and kick this off. First question for Alina. What key points escrow holder would like to have incorporated in the purchase contract?
Oh, okay. This is a loaded question, and mainly for all agents out there. When you turn in the purchase contract to us to open escrow, there's many times that the contract gets turned into us and it's not fully executed. That is the main issue that we see that's happening. They sign a lot of times that you turn in the signed counteroffer, the finance counteroffer, but the purchase contract and everything else is not dated, not signed. So we do have to make sure that we go back to them and get that signed. Now, the contract also talks about the earnest money deposit being deposited. Now they have an additional option for you to mark whether it's a check or a wire. So if that is marked, then we have to follow those instructions to collect the earnest money deposit. Now, many times it says seller to pay for termite, and that is a kind of a vague question for us because sometimes you're meant to just turn in the termite report only, or are you referring to doing the termite completion? So, but many times you just say seller to do termite. So that to us is a little bit vague. So it would be just, if you could please clarify that to see if you wanted to have termite report only or termite report and completion. So maybe if you can just clarify that for us, that would help us a little bit better. And the date of acceptance. Now, Gov Hutchinson, he's the counsel for the car. He advises us and trains us that the confirmation of acceptance, that is what determines the date of acceptance. There are many times that the contracts don't have a confirmation of acceptance. So then, at that point, we will default to the last date that we see on the signed contract. But, so you have to let us know, are you going to proceed and pursue the date of acceptance or not? So that would give you a variance on the closing date. If you see your date and our date being different, is depending on what date are we doing on the date of acceptance. Are you using the date the seller signed, or is the buyer going to sign back the date of acceptance? So that's something that if you can clarify that for us, then that way we can have a better understanding on the actual closing date. Now, also on the contract, there's a section that you mark that says the addenda and advisories, the ones that talks about, if you mark like the buyer's inspection advisory, then those forms needs to be turned in with the contract. Because when the lender's doing the loan, once they review the contract, and if you mark any items, like the statewide buyers and sellers advisory, or anything that is being marked that is part of the contract, that needs to be turned in for them to properly process the loan. So they will be asking for that. And a lot of times they ask us at the last minute, and we're scrambling to turn that in for funding or even getting docs out at that point. And one more item that I wanted to touch on, two more. On page 10, when you fill out the agent's information, you need to turn that in completed and with your signature as well, because lenders will also be asking that to be completed. So I guess during your process, you might as well just complete that, your information, your DRE number, and your signature, and the date, of course. And the last item I wanted to touch base with us is when you fill in the escrow fees, I think a lot of times you put in 50-50, but that a lot of times creates confusion for the buyer and sellers. They keep asking 50-50 of what is the fee, so we normally compute the fees each for the buyer and for the sellers, and they are separate because they have variation of fees in itself. So it will be best to put each to pay their own fees. And that way, they won't be so confused, because the buyers, they do get confused a lot of times, as well as the sellers. Thank you.
Great information, thank you, Lena. Chris, here's a question that I think everybody wants to know. What are interest rates expected to do this year?
Okay, yeah, great question. I'm sure all of us want to know that, because we've seen how that kind of affected us last year. Feds raised rates 4 times in the last 12 months. The most recent one being in December, where they raised another quarter, so we're at a 2.5 Fed funds rate now. What's going to happen this year? So initially in December, they were still, when the Feds met, they kind of led us to believe that there's going to be more rate hikes coming this year. And there probably is. But they met yesterday and the day before, and they did not raise rates to begin the year, which is great. And they've kind of changed their stance. They're now seeing that inflation is kind of in check. That's the main gauge that they look at to see where should monetary cost be. Let's look at inflation. If inflation is appearing or rearing its head, then they're going to raise rates to slow that down. So anyway, now they're saying that this year they're going to be cautious about raising rates, and this is what Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said yesterday. In light of global economic and financial developments and muted inflation pressures, the Fed Policy Committee will be patient as it determines what future adjustments to the target range for federal funds rates may be appropriate. So they're going to keep an eye on things. Things have slowed down a little bit. We've had the government shutdown, we've had trade issues. These are all things that have now kind of slowed down what was really starting to pick up economically. Our unemployment rate is super low. It's down to 3.9%, where it was up in the 5s and 6s just a few years back. So they're going to look at things like the economy. If they start to see any reports showing that things are picking up, we may see some future increases. But right now, they're kind of saying, hey, as long as things stay in check, we're probably not going to see too many increases this year, if any. My thoughts are that right now, things are pretty stable, so I don't think we're going to see too much. But we could see some increases. If they do, keep in mind that that's not always bad for the mortgage market. Again, they're putting in new monetary policy to hedge inflation. When that happens, bond investors like that. And as a result, they purchase more mortgage-backed securities and rates come down. So it could be good for us as well. So hopefully, won't go up much this year, but chances are possible, but not like we were thinking, and not like last year for sure. That should be it on rates, so thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Horatio, as an agent, why should I recommend to my client to hire a deal breaker, home inspector?
Well, let's address the elephant in the room, why don't we? Okay. You are the brains behind this entire transaction. You are the ones that recommend us to your clients. Think about it. What happens if the person that you recommend does not work out well? Who are they going to call? Who are they going to call once all those defects are starting to appear once escrow has closed? You're going to say, well, escrow has closed. I can't do anything about you anymore. Think about it. That is your reputation in the line. It is very important for your reputation to hire or recommend people that really know what they're doing, that do have the experience, that are really going to be professional and honest with your clients. Because guess what? With one click away, they can send a text, they can send a comment, and there goes your reputation with all of their family members and all of their friends. So it is in your best interest to recommend an inspector that is really going to take their time and explain everything that there is to know about this very important investment that your client is making. Remember, houses are not cheap anymore, and repairs are also going up. So you do not want your client to end up with a money pit that is going to turn around and say, hey, what did you do? Why did you put me in here? You recommended a very terrible inspector that didn't go in the roof, that didn't check the crawl space. Now I have leaky plumbing, there's foundation cracks. Sooner or later, those defects will come to light and your client will find them.
Great, thank you, Horatio. Next up, Annie Fan. What is Mellow Roofs? Where can you find it on the tax information?
Okay, so for the Mellow Roofs, we have seen that in a lot of new development areas such as Rancho Cucamongas, Irvines. What it does is when they build a new track, the manufacturing homes, then they develop a bond that to help the community, such as, let's say, do the maintenance for the road, service for the park. So they create this bond for the homeowners, and that's kind of embedded into your annual property tax. Then you have to pay that. So sometimes for the bond, they have a duration. Let's say this bond only lasts for 20 years, or some of the bond, you have to pay it forever. So title companies, we have a way to help you to decipher this information on the Miller Roots. And today I brought the package, and one of the pages, it will show you on the property tax row, it will show the Miller Roots. And then title companies, when let's say you wanted to buy your properties in your development, you just give us a call and we can actually get that information for you to let you know exactly how much they have to pay on the Miller Roots. And the Miller Roots has a code number. It's called CFD. C as a community, F as a financial, D as a district. So CFD, that's where you look at the assessments, and they're going to list down all the itemized things. So one of them, it is Miller Roots. That's how we can figure out. And it will also show on your preliminary title report. So it is extremely important when you're in a transaction. It doesn't matter if you're the listing agent, you're the buyer agent, to read your prelim, because of this way you will know, okay, whether this property has a Miller Roots or not, and you can figure out how long you have to pay for this Miller Roots through the title company. Thank you.
Great information, thank you, Annie. Alina, what types of withholdings are escrow responsible for?
Okay, there are two types of withholding that are handled through the escrow process. One is for the franchise tax board, and we provide a form, which is the 593 form for the sellers to complete to determine whether they need to withhold 3.33% of the purchase price. Now, there are a few exemptions, of course, so you need to fill out the form, such as if you're selling a principal residence, they're exempt. If they're selling at a loss, they're exempt. If they're doing a 1031 exchange, they're exempt. So you have to fill out the form, and if you're selling under a corporation or a partnership, then they will be exempt as well. Otherwise, they do have to withhold 3.33 to the franchise tax board, and if they choose to fill out their gain, they can withhold based on their gain, but they will be withholding at a different percentage rate, will be 12.3. So that is another option that the seller has. If they have a minimum gain and they don't want to pay 3.33 off on the purchase price, they have an option to compute the gain and pay 12.3% of that. And the other withholding that we do is to IRS if you are dealing with a foreign seller. So if the seller is a foreign entity, they do have to withhold, and that will be, the percentage is either 10% if you're selling between purchase price of 300 to $1 million, and if it's over $1 million, that was raised to 15%. Okay, but the original, if you're selling 300 and below, and the buyer is planning to live there, then there is no withholding. But the buyer needs to sign a form that they do plan to live there for a period of time, and if the purchase price is 300 and below, then they're exempt from that withholding. And the main reason I bring that up is because there's a lot of times that the sellers ask us questions regarding capital gain. We are not capable of answering that question for you, but the only thing we do is we do withholding. But we cannot answer any questions regarding capital gain. They do have to address that to their tax counsel. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. Chris, how can the government shutdown affect our industry this year?
Well, that's a current topic for sure, although we're temporarily not in the shutdown, but it does affect the real estate industry, and I think in a number of ways. For the lending industry itself, some of the things that caused us a little trouble are the processing of some of the paperwork. For example, if we've got to get IRS tax validations and federal government is shut down, initially that was something we weren't able to do. They're processing them now, so that's great. Case numbers for FHA loans, that's another thing that can be affected. Luckily, it was not affected this time. VA loans, people wonder, well, that's another government loan. Luckily, has not been affected. So I think the areas of more concern are probably just in regard to what this does to the psyche of America. And, when government shut down and people aren't working, those people are going to have a tougher time to make decisions about buying or moving forward. And those borrowers who happen to be government workers, a little tougher for us as lenders to verify their employment when things like this are going on. Sometimes you can't verify if they're still working. Are they going to get a paycheck? We know that they're going to get paid, but if they're not temporarily getting paid, that's a potential burden on a new homeowner who may not have a paycheck to pay their mortgage. So I think Fannie Mae finally instituted they wanted to see a 2-month reserve for people who are in that situation, which is pretty reasonable. But we'll see moving forward, but I think hopefully we'll be totally done with that shortly and not have any more issues. But luckily, it has not affected us greatly, other than possibly the people who are workers who want to buy.
Thank you, Chris. Horatio, I don't like it when inspectors scare my client. Do you personally make a big deal out of small repairs?
Absolutely not. We all know that homeowners are typically going to come in and make some general repairs, maybe paint, change the carpet, that sort of thing. The way I personally do it, I don't take a lot of time out of your clients and your schedule to try to go over all those minor little items. I concentrate on major repairs, and then if your client does have a budget, then they might ask me, well, what is more important right now? So the thing that I find most important is the roof. I mean, I go up there and take a very good look at the roof, because that is one of the major repairs that if you do not address it, it's going to start to create more issues down below. And how many of your clients do go up in the roof on a regular basis to come and inspect it? I personally go in there and take a lot of pictures and do a very thorough inspection. All the other items and that are, some people are concerned, well, it's galvanized plumbing, I like copper, I prefer to have this type of flooring, I prefer to have this type of electrical. Those are repairs that your client could potentially do down the line. But some of those major items that I focus on, during the inspection, it's usually the roof.
Thank you, Horacio. Annie, the seller has solar energy on the property. Where can you find it on the prelim, and does it show on the property tax information?
We have seen this a lot. So let's say when the seller is going to sell the properties, sometimes the buyer is going to try to figure out, we know there's an energy solar program, how are we going to find out more information? So title company, we have resources. You can actually pull the chain of title, and there's going to be a recorded document. So today I brought this packet, some of you might have it. So the first page is the Notice of Independent Solar Energy Producer Contract. So the solar panel, let's say like PACE program or HERO program, that's considered as a lien. Okay, so you can actually pull the documents through title companies. And it's going to tell you the contract, how long it's going to for the lease. Typically it's about 20 years, and they will tell you the dollar amount. And then the second page, if you have the packet, you can see on item number 4, it's going to tell you it is on the preliminary title report. So starting as assessments and other matters as contained in documents entitled Payment of Contractual Assessment Required. And all the way, it's going to tell you that the amount of assessment is, let's say, $15,000, and starting from 2015 to 2035 tax year. So you will find out this information on your preliminary title report. And other things on the seller property questionnaires from your zip form, there's one section you needed to look into that. Sometimes the agent might missed it. It's called the any pays liens such as HERO or SCEIP or other liens on your property securing a loan to pay. So you need to make sure you check yes. And a lot of times we see, like I missed, or there's something you want to look into that. And then on your paperwork, it's going to have the notice assessment. And the 4th page is going to tell you the breakdown on the interest you're going to pay for the 20 years. Okay? And the 5th page has from the title point. So it's going to show you that there is a charge on the California HERO program. So the item number was 09621. So basically that's embedded to your annual property tax. It's $1735. So that's where you can find out that information. And title company, we have a resources and database to help you pull that information. And the last page, it shows you on your annual property tax bill under the 2017. This is just this example, 2017 annual property tax information statement. There is a last 3rd item is CA HERO residential LA. There is a dollar amount, so it's part of your property tax. Okay? So it is extremely important to review your preliminary title report, because if there's any recorded information, it's going to be there, and that will help you to smoothen out your transaction. Thank you.
Alina, how should the proceeds be distributed to the seller?
Okay, I took a poll in my office, and this is the most widely asked question by the customer, so I thought that we revisit this again. Now, the sellers, they always ask us about disbursement of proceeds, that they want to do it to this other person, pay someone else. So, sometimes they own it under a trust, if the seller owns it under the trust, the disbursements cannot be payable to the individual. So you have to ask them whether they have an account already set up under the trust. If not, they have to go ahead and open an account in order for them to be able to cash their proceeds check. So that's the trust question is not, for sure it has to be not to the individual. They always try to push us and change it to the individuals. We cannot. It would have to be dispersed to the trust. And the same thing, if the seller owned it under the LLC, you would have to payable to the LLC and not to the members of the LLC, or the same for the corporation and such. And also sometimes they want it payable to the heirs or payable to the brothers. It cannot. We are responsible to disperse the proceeds to the vested owner. So however they're vested, we have to pay the proceeds to that. And if they have liens, and we can only be responsible to pay the securities. If we have unsecured liens, then they would have to take care of that on their own when they receive the proceeds. So we can only do it to the vested owners. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. Chris, what lending changes or trends can we expect in 2019?
Okay. Well, we just saw the first of these changes just at the end of the year and starting the beginning of the year, which was the increase of the loan limits. We went from 453,000 range to 483, 450 for the new conforming limit, and the high balance going up to 726, 525 now before it becomes a jumbo. So not a huge amount, but 30,000, we certainly could use it, our marketplace especially. We already spoke about rates. Rates will probably rise, but probably only modestly, so hopefully that'll continue. I just got a notification on my phone a few seconds ago that market's up today about 15 basis points. It closed up yesterday 30 basis points, meaning market's improving rate-wise, at least today and yesterday, so hopefully that trend continues a little bit. Adjustable rate mortgages, you're going to see more of that. Anytime that rates go up like they have, affordability and qualifying and all these issues come into play, so what do people do? They start to look at other products. I haven't had people asking me yet much about adjustables, but you're starting to see and will see with this trend that you're going to start to see like hybrid ARMs, 5-1, 7-1, 3-1, fixed for 5, 3, or 7 years and then becoming adjustable after. I think that's going to start to come back and we're going to see some of that. Still, it'll probably only be about 10% of market share, but we haven't seen hardly any market share of adjustables in the last few years. I'm not a big proponent of adjustables, but they do work out great for some people. Millennials are still going to be a big buying force this year, huge in fact, and they're going to make up probably the bulk of buyers, so you better get versed on how they do business. They do business a little bit differently, but they're going to be buying. With rates increasing as much as they had, we're probably not going to see much refinances. I haven't seen much in the last few years as it is. Been doing mostly purchases, but we're going to see fewer and fewer because people have better rates than what's out there right now in most cases. So if there's going to be refinances or people taking out HELOCs, which we're going to probably see quite a bit of, those people that can't sell or don't want to move up or buy, they may be refinancing now for other reasons, pulling out cash. Maybe they got to do some improvements. Maybe they need some debt consolidation. But it's going to be more purpose-driven borrowing on refinances than it has been for rate, for sure. We're probably going to start to see, and I've been seeing over the last couple of years, a lot more of these non-QM mortgage products coming out. QM just stands for qualified mortgages. When the market crashed in 2008, Dodd-Frank came into play, and the CFPB and all these entities, they started to put in new rules and things that would keep mortgage lending safer and a little less risky. So they put into effect this qualified mortgage. So you have to have certain ratios to be able to do a mortgage. You have to qualify them using documentation. But these other programs are coming back. You see stated income stuff coming back. It's very different though now. Mostly you're seeing that on non-owner stuff. I think because of rules and laws that don't allow it for owner-occupied. But you're going to see variations. Bank statement programs are coming back where they'll, add up deposits and use that as income. So there's always going to be a trade-off for rates and pricing when you're going to alternative products, but know that they're out there and you're going to see more and more of that coming. Good or bad, that's what's happening. The other thing that you're going to see with the tightening of the mortgage industry and rates having gone up, less refinances being done, there's going to be lender consolidation. You're going to be seeing companies consolidate. You're going to be seeing layoffs happening in the lending industry. But hopefully we'll all sell a lot of properties and we'll do a lot of loans on them, so there won't be any of that. But that's pretty much what I see for the coming year. And again, hopefully no rate increases would be great. But I think that's about it for 2019.
That's good. Thank you, Chris.
Welcome.
Horatio, what areas are most important or included in the inspection?
Okay, the areas I personally concentrate the most are stains on carpet, very important. That's a joke. It's roof, structure and foundation, plumbing, electrical, and central AC and furnace. Okay, I do check the roof as thorough as I can, and I provide hundreds of pictures in my report with a lot of explanation. If there is an important issue that I find it, relevant for you to know as well as your client, I do provide several pictures for that comment. Because some people say, well, your comments are, difficult to understand. I do provide pictures, and it's very easy to see in color in my reports. So the roof, the structure, if it's a raised foundation, I do go into the crawl space and I do check all of the walls all around the foundation. I just recently did an inspection on a flip home where the exterior walls of the foundation, all the major cracks were simply covered with stucco. I went into the crawl space and I found 2-inch foundation cracks. Okay? And I do take a lot of pictures of those as well. I also check the electrical to see if all the electrical wiring is grounded throughout the house. A lot of people are concerned about getting electrocuted. I do provide that information as well. Make sure that some of the panels are upgraded. Some of you have heard about Cisco brand panels, Federal Pacific Electric standard panels, that those are defective. I do bring that information up to your attention as well as your client, and I do provide a lot of information. Sometimes I do provide, information online if you desire to search more information on that. Plumbing, a lot of people are concerned about galvanized plumbing. Why galvanized? It's a very good question. Some people ask a very good question. Galvanized plumbing, as it ages, you have a lot of rust and corrosion on the inside. So you have water restriction. So if somebody's taking a shower, somebody else is taking, doing the dishes, it's gonna feel like they're stealing the hot water. So I do run some tests and let you know how old the plumbing is, if it's still okay, or if you already reached the typical lifespan of plumbing. Again, if it's a raised foundation, I go in the crawl space and I take pictures of all of the plumbing down there. Heating and central AC and furnace, I also provide a lot of pictures, and I also test the equipment, go in the attic and check all the ducting to see if you have any asbestos installation in all of the duct. A lot of people are concerned about that as well.
Thank you, Rachel. Annie, when you are in escrow, you believe the neighbor is encroaching the property your client is buying. What can you do?
So when you're in an escrow, this is a situation you're finding out. You can actually contact the title companies. We have a third-party vendor, the visual inspection. So typically you have to pay about between $150 to $200. When you order the inspection, it doesn't mean, let's say if you order it today, Thursday morning, there's no guarantee, and the inspector is not going to be at the site, the property right away or within the same day. So typically it takes a couple days for them to go. Then what they do is they're going to do a visual inspection, looking at the property lot line and take pictures, and then pretty much write a report to let you know whether they do see a encroachment happening or not. And this is done through basically somebody has to call the title company, title unit, and let us know, and we can schedule an inspection. And when we do that, within a couple of days, you will get the inspection report, and there's a cost to it. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the questions that we have prepared. I'd like to now open it up for the audience for any questions you may have. Marcus?
Annie was mentioning a very important thing about the Miller roofs. I would also like to reiterate, when you ask a title company to call and find out the length of it that it's going to be, it's managed, those bonds are managed by legal companies, and they're only allowed to give you verbal information. They can never give you any written information. So it's advisable that you tell your clients, give them the number, please help them find the number. It's usually next to the itemized tax bill in the tax roll or on their tax bill. And they can call and they can find out themselves, because sometimes the client, I've experienced where the client says, well, how long is it there for? And you tell them 40 years, and then they find out that it's renewable after 40 years. So they have to always call the CFD themselves and the founder of the bond company that's managing it.
Yes, sir.
My question is about the home inspection before close at escrow, okay? And then if the inspector overlooks some problem, after we close escrow, of course, the seller is gone and then the buyer move in. If the buyer find out anything wrong, what can the buyer do? Can we claim against the inspection company or not the seller anymore? What do we do now?
That's a very good question. Our company does offer warranties within the boundaries of the home inspection contract agreement. Obviously, what we provide is a visual inspection, non-intrusive, non-destructive. So anything that is behind the walls, behind personal belongings, obviously we have no view of that. Call customer service and they'll give you far more information on what our contract agreement is. But remember, it is a visual inspection. There are limitations to what we can do or what we cannot do. But the company does offer some warranties on our services as long as it is within the scope of services and the contract agreement.
Yeah, David.
I have 1.5 questions for Horacio.
For 1.5 person.
Okay, when you do a home inspection for the roof, what are the means that you use to inspect the roof? And what if the roof is covered significantly by solar panels? How do you inspect that roof?
Okay, it's a very good question. Again, what we provide, it is a visual inspection. I mean, if it is covered by panels, obviously I'm gonna take a look underneath it as much as I can, whether they provided a lot of caulking around those areas where the supports are located. I take a very good close at that. If it is covered with leaves, something I could move, that's easily movable. I'm gonna look underneath it and take a lot of pictures for that as well. I am very, very careful on what I do. Obviously, if there's something nailed to the roof, some people putting a tarp over the roof, obviously there's a reason why they put a tarp over the roof. I'm not gonna move that. I'm not gonna try to destroy what it is that the homeowner has there, but it's pretty clear why they would put a tarp in there. But whenever, again, if it is within something reasonable that I could move, that I could, look underneath it, I will rest assured I will take responsibility over the inspection at that point and do my best to inspect it as much as I can.
Did you use a ladder? Did you
I climb up there? Yes. Very good question. How do I get up there? I jump?
Spider-Man.
Yes, I do use a ladder. Obviously, if it is a tile roof, we're not allowed to walk in there. I put my ladder as much as possible all around the edges, and I do take pictures, zoom in, zoom out, as much as possible on those things. We're not allowed to walk on tile roofing. Obviously, if we cause damage, it is our responsibility.
Any other questions? All right, let's thank all the panelists for the great information. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.